Welcome to Caching Waves. This is an Elliott Wave update for Bitcoin. Now this video I'm going to be focusing more on the smaller time frames at the end of this fourth wave, but just real quick, just to show you where I have us on the daily, that is that we have a wave 1, 2, 3, 4 complete at 49,000, looking for 5 waves up for this fifth wave, targeting just under 100,000 at 98,151. That is if we get an idealized target of the length of wave 1 extended off of wave 4. Now these can change, targets can change based on the wave formations from this level. But right now, if this is the idealized Elliott wave target, this is where we would end up. All right, so going to be focusing on this area right here and talk about how we can potentially come down for one more low as well. So first of all, on the 4 hour, where that fourth wave is a low potentially, my view is that it is, but we always need to be aware of the bearish scenario as well. And if the bearish scenario plays out, I would expect this to be an A, B, C for a zigzag, a X wave and a 3-wave move, and then another A, B, C for a double zigzag. Reason being is this can be counted as 3 or 5 waves, so either complete as a WXY for our fourth wave, or if it's 5 waves down, potentially we might need another move to the downside. Although I don't think that would happen quite yet. So that's the bearish scenario. The bullish scenario is we just continue on from here in a 5-wave move. Okay, let's get down to the smaller time frames. Now I'm going to stick to my most primary counts for this. There are multiple ways to count this area, but I'm going to be using what fits guidelines the best for my current primary counts. Now, the one I think is most likely currently, just based on the fib levels and the targeting we are hitting here, is that we are getting a diagonal to the upside for a wave 1, 2 of the fifth. So within that fifth wave on the larger degree, this is wave 1 and 2 potentially. Now that leaves the idea open that we could get extensions in the fifth, because you can see we're targeting pretty high to begin with, but we will discuss that in further videos in the future. Now, alternatively, this can be counted as a 5-wave move. I've seen it counted this way a couple different times here. I double checked it myself. It does make sense. How that would work is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see it really doesn't have the structure we want or the right look, but it is technically valid. And the way I would change my view of that is if we get a move that obviously explodes outside of our standard target area of our diagonal. So our targets we're looking for here in our diagonal is between the 618, 65,377 and the 786, 68,108. This would be a 3-wave move to the upside. We have a zigzag for our wave 1, WXY for our 2. We're looking for an A, B. This will be 5 waves up for our 3, 4, and 5. That would complete wave 1 of our fifth wave. Okay, so that's my primary point of view currently. And now we'll talk about how this does play out and what that would look like. This was in the thumbnail, is if this is our wave 2 low, we would be looking for an ABC. Now this would get moving pretty quickly, and this first wave here was very difficult to count. I can count it as a zigzag, I can count it as an impulse. Either one is not pretty, as you can see. This scenario I have us as wave 1, 2 with a flat, 3 running flat for our fourth, and 5 waves up for our fifth. And this then becomes a WXY, zigzags. So that's scenario 1. Scenario 2 is this becomes a diagonal in itself. Not pretty either. But either way, have this as a 5-wave move. And what we're looking for now in a zigzag in that ending diagonal scenario is 5 waves up for our C wave. Now, important to note that we need quite an extreme C wave here. If I take off this, you can see where we're aiming for, that third wave. So I have my C wave up there. And that would actually target between the 200 and the 2.618 extension. perhaps a 2.236. And what we need to see this pattern play out before we can pull fibs for it. But taken from the beginning of A off of this B wave, if this is the low, our C wave would come up somewhere between the 200 and 2.618 extension. So the way I have this played out as our C wave is this is making a diagonal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look for our wave 2 within the C wave, then our 3, 4, 5 to complete our wave 3 within that diagonal. It's important to note, to keep this intact, we have to hold above this wave 1 labeled as the diagonal. Now that price point would be at depending on your exchange. This one is Binance. According to Binance, we'd have to hold 57,787.30 to keep that intact. So that's scenario 1. This is my primary currently. So looking for this fifth wave to the upside within this diagonal for our wave 1 within the C. And it's important to note that this becomes invalidated if wave 5 on the micro here, this wave 5, passes 63,063.34. At that point, wave 3 right here would become the shortest wave, which isn't allowed in a diagonal. So what I'm looking for is we can come a little bit lower, might have to adjust this trend line, we'll see, or we hold this level, and this is our A, B, C to the upside. But either way, looking for this move either one more down or up, or straight there right now, and then looking for a correction after the fact, most likely over the weekend, and maybe get a CME gap here, and we fill that gap on Monday. So we'll see if this ends up panning out. Now we need to also talk about the bearish scenario. This scenario is pretty simple. Obviously, as long as we hold 57,787.30, this is the move I am playing for. And we'd expect an extended C wave within this larger diagonal, as you see. Okay, now the bearish scenario is potentially a flat. This is the one I'm looking for if we start to fail on this bullish case. If we don't quite make that level we're looking for and we only make it up to 64,430 and 65,496 in that zone, that leaves us open to the fact if we just grind up here with a lot of overlap, this would be a B wave, which are very difficult to track, as I've mentioned in several videos, and we'd then be looking for a C wave to the downside in 3 or 5 waves. And in this point of view, this would be the entire correction before moving to the upside. That's scenario 2 if we do fail below that level of the diagonal at 57,787.30. Now, it's important to note that even as soon as we make this one last move to the upside, and this is our diagonal, this can in itself be an ABC. And our B wave can technically be complete, as at that point we will have passed the 90% retracement of this move to the downside, which is the minimum retracement for a flat scenario. So we have the possibility, as soon as we pass that 90% and get that completed diagonal, to just drop down and get a partner leg for this A wave for a C before an attempt to the upside again. So obviously very important to manage your risk in that area. My plan myself is if we get this move to the upside as a diagonal, I'm going to hedge in this zone. That's my plan. And I will, if we just start taking off, perhaps my count is incorrect and we start taking off, my invalidation point for that is where wave 3 becomes the shortest. Just to give you an example, I'll hedge in this area, or the top of that trend line if we come there, and I will close that hedge short, which just means the same position size short as long, so a neutral area to me, past that 63,000 63. Past this, I'm long only. In this area, I'm head short, looking for this wave 2, right? Just a little bit of insight of what I'm doing. But important to note, as soon as we make that, that's technically a B wave complete. But more often than not, in running flats or expanded flats, we tend to come to this zone, the 1.236 and 1.382 of this A wave to the downside before making our partner leg. So we would expect to come higher than that, although the 90% is just the minimum requirement. Okay, and the other thing to note in that bearish scenario, this is where it gets a little bit tricky and you have to manage your risk and constantly be paying attention, is as soon as we hit that B wave zone, this can also be a completed WXY to the upside. Like so, 3, 3, this would be an ABC. As long as we hit the 618 extension of W off of the X wave currently, which is at 65,337. Is it closer? 64,572. Right here is the minimum requirement, the 618. 64,572 or 3, 573. So unfortunately, it leaves us to that other option where this is a zigzag, WXAB, C to the downside. So you can see how important it is that we get up and over this zone. There's a lot of options available. I was hesitant to give a lot of options in this area just because so many options are available. Sometimes it's best just to let things clear themselves out, become more obvious. But as for me, potentially, this is the best trade setup I see currently for myself, and that is if we get this diagonal, I'm currently long already, but if we get this diagonal, hedge and try and get this move to the upside. That's the way I'm playing it. Absolute stop is at the beginning of that C wave, so not a lot of risk. And if we do come down from this area, I would be looking for a long again, because I would expect at least a Y wave to the upside to complete this correction. But I hope that wasn't too complicating, guys. There's a lot going on here. Important to note, my main idea is that we're making a C wave and almost complete the wave 1 of that C wave. In this area, I will be very tight with my stops. Once we get that third wave, I will probably be riding the 618 as we start to move to the upside. As this wave pans out, I'll just be riding that 618 for my stop just to make sure I lock up any profits. All right, guys, so that's it for this one. Once again, this is my primary count. Looking for this diagonal to the upside to complete a larger wave 1 and 2 of wave 5. All right, guys, that's it for Bitcoin. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.